So I upgraded my house from the Philips Hue Bridge to the new Philips Hue Bridge Pro. In this video, I want to tell you all about what it's like. Should you do this too? Whether you're just getting into Philips Hue today or you've been using their bulbs for years. And for all you Apple Home fans out there were some weird details of how Philips Hue talks to Apple Home that I want to get into, and you need to be aware of some things if you want to do the switch. Philips Hue is the most reliable smart bulb system I've seen. And this Philips Hue Bridge has been running my smart home since 2017, but they're always more expensive than their competition. And you generally get what you pay for, although it is good to see Philips Hue moving down market with some less expensive bulbs, as well as adding Matter support to their bulbs. So you don't necessarily need a Hue Bridge, but my advice would be if you're looking to buy Philips Hue bulbs, it's great they have that one-off compatibility with Matter, but you're still kind of missing out on the whole experience and different controls you can get and different ways you can control your Philips Hue lights without getting at least one of these two Philips Hue bridges. When Philips Hue originally launched, back in 2011, they had this round bridge. And if you still have that bridge running your smart home, please upgrade. It's time. Now, in 2016, they came out with the Hue Bridge you've probably seen before, and it is a whopping 16 megabytes of RAM, not really a super high power device, and it requires being hardwired into your home network. It does integrate natively with a lot of smart home systems like Apple Home, and then they later added Matter support to this bridge. But with that not so great horsepower comes some limits of this bridge can only power up to 50 lights and 12 controls. Now, if you live in a smaller place or Philips Hue is only part of the lighting in your smart home, 50 lights is still a lot. But people who wanted more would have to get a second bridge in their home and things could get confusing. So in 2025, Philips Hue came out with the Hue Bridge Pro. And this has 8 gigabytes of RAM, a lot more horsepower. It's USB-C powered, and one key detail you might really like, it works with Ethernet as well, just like the old one, or you can connect it to your smart home via Wi-Fi. So you could put this bridge somewhere that makes more sense for connecting to your lights, or maybe you've just run out of space by your internet router. And with this greater horsepower comes support for over 150 lights, which Philips Hue says. HueBlog, which is a great source for this kind of thing, estimates the limit is 183 devices. And Philips Hue says that it should be 5 times faster in performance than the old bridge. There's also a MotionAware cool smart lighting feature that we'll get into in a minute. Installing the Hue Bridge Pro was very easy. I just plug it into my network, plug it into power, open the Philips Hue app, go to add a new bridge, and from there it just walks me through the process of setting it up and then migrating all my devices from my old Philips Hue Bridge to the new Philips Hue Bridge Pro. This moved the names and rooms and scene names and other things from my original Hue Bridge over to the Bridge Pro as I had them set up in Philips Hue. But certain things like what they call friends of Hue devices, like my absolute favorite Lutron Aurora dimmers for Philips Hue, need to be manually re-added to the new bridge. But then you have Hue connections to all kinds of other smart home systems like Amazon Alexa, and that seemed to pick up on a lot of the names carrying over to my new bridge automatically. But then other systems like Apple Home will just stop working because they only see the old bridge, and anything attached to the new bridge or hub is a completely different device as far as Apple Home is concerned. So in that case, what you need to do is remove your old bridge from Apple Home and then scan the Matter code on the back of your Bridge Pro to go ahead and add it into Apple Home. When you do that, Apple Home will walk you through adding all of your existing bulbs as basically new devices to Apple Home, assigning them to rooms and giving them names that make sense. One cool detail here is the identify button. So you can use that to then identify the light you're trying to configure. By hitting this button, you'll see the light flash, and so then you'll know which light bulb you're trying to configure. So all of this process was completely fine and about as easy as it could be. But then I realized that a bunch of my automations in Apple Home weren't working. And a bunch of the scenes that I'd originally set up for my different rooms, like kitchen bright and kitchen off, and living room bright and living room off, had just disappeared from Apple Home. and they hadn't actually completely disappeared. Now, I could just recreate these scenes with the new lights, and that would probably work, but there is a limit in Apple Home of 100 scenes for your home. And I also already had these scenes tied to existing automations in Apple Home. So I went into a third-party app for HomeKit, or Apple's smart home framework, and that was able to see the scenes that had no devices tied to them, where I could then re-add these new versions of all these Philips Hue bulbs to those particular scenes, which then reconnected them with all the different automations. Now, this whole process is a tedious one and not something that I've completed at this point. There's still random closets in my home where I used to have scenes and automations to turn on lights when the closet door opens, and I haven't gotten to setting all those up yet. But speaking of automation, there's a new feature in the Bridge Pro you might have heard of called MotionAware. This is a futuristic idea that multiple lights you might have in a room can sense where the human is and then just turn on the lights if someone's in the room. And Philips Hue's CTO, Giorgiani, in an interview with HomeKit Insider, said that they're using the Zigbee wireless standard behind the scenes in some creative ways to sort of triangulate interference patterns and then realize that a human is in fact in the room. The other impressive part of this is, while you do need the horsepower of the Philips Hue Bridge Pro, most of the existing Philips Hue lights already support this tech, and I'll leave a link in the description to a complete list of which lights support it. But the other catch, before you get too excited about this, is you need at least 3 of these compatible Philips Hue lights in a particular room, and those lights need to be in different parts of the room. So if you have something like a light fixture with multiple lights inside the light fixture, that's not going to count. Now, this feature clearly took Philips Hue a lot of work to set up, but the motion sensing is restricted to where you have the lights, not to mention that you need at least 3 lights in the room that work with this system. The Hue app also cautions you during setup about that you don't want this near a common hallway, which makes me think that a lot of open floor plan scenarios where maybe you want this in your open floor plan living room would not be a good place to try this. Personally, I would rather drop a millimeter wave sensor in the room just so you can accurately place where people are and then turn on the lights that way. But if you have the right setup where multiple Philips Hue bulbs in an enclosed room can determine where people are, it is pretty magical, and you don't need to deal with any extra sensors. But one of the things that I think is important to realize is that even though, yes, this hub is supposed to be a little bit faster, and there are these cool new features like MotionAware, there's not really any big noticeable difference. I don't think anybody else in my family really notices that I changed the Philips Hue Bridge, other than the fact that some of the lights stopped working and I had to reprogram them. But that has nothing to do with any improvements coming from this bridge. So that, I guess, gets us to the big question is, should you upgrade to the Bridge Pro or get the Bridge Pro if you're new to Philips Hue? Well, if you have the original round circle bridge from 2011, yes, please upgrade. Also, if you're coming to the Philips Hue system completely new today, I would recommend just going for the Hue Bridge Pro, unless you're on a tight budget. There's about a $40 cost increase from the Hue Bridge, which really equates to an extra light or 2 from Philips Hue. But I think in general, getting the more boring option of the more powerful bridge is probably money better spent in the long run. Now, if you already have the standard Hue Bridge in your home and it's working well, and you're not close to the 50 light limit or 12 controls, and you're not really disappointed with the speed of your Philips Hue responsiveness, then I would say just stick with your existing hub. There's no reason to change to the new Philips Hue Bridge or hub. The only other case I could see where upgrading to the Hue Bridge Pro might make sense is with that Wi-Fi connection. If that's going to open up more options for you, maybe it's going to free up a port on the back of your internet router so that you can put something else there and then move the Hue Bridge Pro somewhere else in your home. That could be enough of a reason over time to upgrade. But overall, I can see why Philips Hue continues to sell the standard Hue Bridge in a lot of places and with a lot of kits. The Bridge Pro is not necessarily for everyone, but if you want or need that extra capacity and headroom and performance speed and maybe the MotionAware system, then it is a really nice upgrade. But as much as Philips Hue did what they could to make the hub migration seamless, just the way that smart homes work with everything centralizing around a bridge, and then when that changes, all those devices change with another smart home system, that right there with something like Apple Home makes for a tedious process that's kind of unfortunate. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments about the Hue Bridge Pro. Are you thinking of upgrading? Are you happy with your Hue Bridge? And if this whole idea of bridges and hubs and things that control Philips Hue, but then also Apple Home and maybe other systems like Lutron Caseta all in your home, just that all that has your head spinning, then you should watch this video over here because it straightens all those details out for you. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.